My name is Nick Marrow, and I should have known my wife was screwing half the town when she started buying lingerie I never got to see. But the real wake-up call? Finding a hotel receipt in her purse for the Sunset Motel, a place I'd never set foot in, for a night I spent alone watching Netflix. She always said I was paranoid. I prefer the term well-informed. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I run Marrow's Auto Repair in this Rust Belt town where everyone knows everyone's business, except apparently mine. My wife Samantha, Sam to her friends, Babe to her lovers, works as an HR executive downtown. She's got the kind of polished look that screams, "I'm too good for this place," which should have been my first red flag 15 years ago. The second red flag was her brother Derek. Derek Whitman is everything I'm not. College-educated, smooth-talking, and convinced the world owes him a favor. He moved back to town 6 months ago after his startup crashed in California, and Sam immediately invited him to stay in our guest room temporarily. That was half a year ago. "Nick, you need to understand Derek's situation," Sam said last Tuesday, standing in our kitchen wearing a dress that cost more than most people's car payments. "He's been through a lot." "Yeah, well, so have I replied, wiping grease off my hands with a rag. "And I've been through it while paying the mortgage on this house that he's living in rent-free." Derek wandered in then, wearing pajama pants at 2 in the afternoon, holding a protein shake. "Hey, brother-in-law, any chance you could spot me $50? I've got a job interview tomorrow and need to fill up my car." I looked at his BMW, the one he somehow still owned despite being broke, then back at his expectant face. "Get a job first. Then we'll talk about gas money." Sam's eyes flashed. "Nick, don't be cruel. Family helps family. Family also doesn't freeload for 6 months. That's when Derek played his favorite card, the victim routine. "Look, man, I know you think I'm some kind of burden, but I'm trying to get back on my feet." Sam understands what it's like to have ambition. The way he said ambition made it sound like working with my hands was something shameful. Like building a business from nothing, employing 4 people and keeping the lights on for 15 years was somehow less worthy than whatever pyramid scheme he was chasing this week. But the real problem wasn't Derek's freeloading or his condescending attitude. The real problem was how Sam lit up when he talked about his big plans and networking opportunities. She'd hang on his every word like he was some kind of prophet, while barely looking up from her phone when I mentioned my day. "Your problem, Nick," Derek said, taking a long sip of his shake, "is that you think small. You're content fixing other people's broken things instead of building something bigger." "Someone has to fix the broken things," I said. "Someone has to do the actual work." That's employee thinking, not owner thinking. I wanted to remind him that I literally owned my business, but Sam jumped in before I could respond. "Derek's right about thinking bigger," she said. "Maybe it's time we considered some changes." The way she said "we" didn't include me. I could tell by how she looked at Derek when she said it, like they'd already had this conversation without me. That night, I found Carlos at Pinstripe, our local bar. Carlos used to be a cop before he got tired of dealing with the city council's politics and took a job running security at the bar. He's the kind of friend who tells you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. "Your wife's been asking a lot of questions about divorce law," he said, sliding a beer across the table. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that involve asset division and spousal support." I took a long drink, feeling the pieces click into place. "She's planning something." "Yeah, and I don't think it involves growing old together." The next morning, Mrs. DeWitt from next door knocked on my door while Sam was at work. Mrs. DeWitt is 78 and knows everything that happens on our street, usually before it happens. "Nicholas, dear," she said, holding a plate of cookies that was clearly an excuse to gossip. "I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but I've been seeing some unusual activity." What kind of activity? Well, your wife's car has been gone several nights this week, and that young man, her brother, he's been having visitors. Different cars, different people, very late at night. I thanked her for the cookies and the information, then called in sick to work. Instead of going to the garage, I parked down the street and watched my own house. At 11 a.m., a silver Lexus pulled into my driveway. A man in an expensive suit got out, someone I recognized as Brad Morrison, the town's most successful accountant. He knocked on my door like he belonged there. Derek answered, and they shook hands like old friends. An hour later, Brad left. 20 minutes after that, Sam's best friend Gina showed up. Then Mike from the gym where Sam claimed to be getting in shape for summer. Then Curtis, the bartender from Pinstripe. By 3 p.m., I'd seen 5 different people visit my house while I was supposed to be at work. None of them stayed long, but they all looked comfortable, like they'd been there before. When Sam got home that evening, she was glowing. "Great day at work, babe," she said, kissing my cheek with lips that tasted like someone else's cologne. "Derek and I were thinking we should throw you a birthday party next week. Something special. Invite all our friends." "All our friends?" "You know, the whole gang. Make it a real celebration." I smiled and told her that sounded wonderful, but inside, I was already planning something else entirely. Because I'd just figured out what Derek's real job was in our house. He wasn't just freeloading, he was running a brothel, and my wife was the star attraction. Planning a surprise for someone who thinks they're surprising you is an art form. Sam spent the next week making calls about the party, whispering with Derek about decorations and guest lists, acting like she was organizing the social event of the season. What she was actually organizing was my public humiliation. I know this because I'd started paying attention, really paying attention, to the details she thought I was too stupid to notice. Like how she'd shower and change clothes before running errands, how she'd come home with her lipstick perfect, but her hair slightly messed, how she'd get text messages that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in years. "We should have the party at the park," she announced Thursday morning, buttering toast with the kind of enthusiasm she used to reserve for Christmas morning. You know, the pavilion by the lake. More space for everyone. Everyone turned out to be quite a list. Sam made sure to mention each name, watching my face for reactions I was careful not to give. "I invited Brad Morrison. You remember Brad, right? He did our taxes last year. And Gina, of course. And Mike from the gym. Oh, and Curtis said he'd come after his shift at Pinstripe." Each name was a little test, a tiny knife twist to see if I'd figured it out yet. "That's great, honey," I said. "Really thoughtful of you." But I was making my own guest list. I called my sister Lexi, who drives up from the city every few weeks to make sure I'm not letting life steamroll me completely. "You want me to come to your birthday party?" she asked. "Since when do you like birthday parties?" "Since I decided to make this one memorable." Uh-oh. What's Sam done now? Lexi never liked Sam, which used to annoy me. Now it seemed like wisdom. Let's just say she's been very social lately. How social? The kind that involves hotel receipts and afternoon visitors. There was a long pause. "Nick, please tell me you're not planning to do something stupid." "I'm planning to do something smart. There's a difference." I also invited Carlos, who agreed to come after I explained what I suspected was really happening. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Because once you blow this up, there's no putting it back together." "It's already blown up," I said. "I'm just making sure everyone gets to see the fireworks." Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Sunny, warm, the kind of day that makes you believe good things are possible. Sam spent the morning setting up decorations at the park pavilion, humming while she hung streamers like she was preparing for her own wedding. Derek helped, naturally. He'd been extra friendly all week, probably feeling guilty about what was coming, or maybe just excited to watch his plan unfold. "This is going to be such a great day," Sam said, adjusting a banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Nick," in letters big enough to see from space. "I really think this party will change everything." She was right about that. The guests started arriving at 6. Brad Morrison showed up first, wearing a polo shirt and khakis like he was heading to a country club. He brought an expensive bottle of whiskey and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Nick, happy birthday, buddy," he said, shaking my hand with the enthusiasm of a man who'd been practicing the gesture. Gina came next, looking nervous and overdressed for a park picnic. Then Mike, whose gym-sculpted arms were barely contained by his tight t-shirt. Curtis arrived last, still smelling like the bar he'd just left. Sam had invited a few other people too, neighbors, co-workers, the kind of social padding that would make her announcement feel more dramatic. But the core group was there, her brother, her lovers, and me. Lexi arrived just as we were serving food, and I could see her cataloging the guest list with the sharp eyes of someone who'd spent years reading people for a living. "Interesting crowd," she murmured, hugging me hello. "It's about to get more interesting." We ate burgers and made small talk, while Sam fluttered around like a hostess at a society event. She kept checking her phone and exchanging glances with Derek, building up to whatever moment they'd planned. Finally, as the sun started setting and people were finishing their second drinks, Sam stood up and tapped her wine glass with a fork. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" The chatter died down. Even the kids playing nearby seemed to sense something important was happening. "I wanted to take a moment to say something about Nick," Sam began, her voice carrying across the pavilion with practiced confidence. "We've been married for 15 years, and I think it's time for some honesty. Here it comes," I thought. "The truth is, I'm sleeping with someone who can actually satisfy me," she announced, her voice rising with each word. "Someone who understands what a real woman needs. Someone who isn't content to just fix broken things." The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear the lake water lapping against the shore, the distant sound of traffic, someone's phone buzzing with a text message. Brad's face had gone pale. Mike was staring at his shoes. Curtis looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground, but Sam wasn't finished. "I think it's time Nick knew that his wife has outgrown this small town, small-minded life. Some of us have bigger dreams." She looked directly at me, waiting for the shock, the tears, the public breakdown she'd orchestrated. Instead, I stood up, took a sip of my beer, and smiled. "So is everyone," I said, loud enough for the whole pavilion to hear. "In fact, let's see who's on the guest list." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd been building all week. Screenshots, photos, recorded conversations, receipts, and hotel records. "Brad," I said, looking at the accountant who was now sweating through his polo shirt. "Tuesday afternoon, Sunset Motel, room 237. You paid cash, but your car was caught on the security camera." Brad started to stand up, but I wasn't finished. "Mike, Wednesday evening, same motel, room 115. You used your credit card, which was stupid, but then again, nobody's hiring you for your brain." Mike's jaw dropped. Literally. "Curtis, Thursday after your shift. You didn't even leave town, just used the apartment above the bar. Mrs. Patterson from across the street has a great view from her window, and she loves taking pictures of interesting visitors." Curtis knocked over his chair, standing up. "Nick, man, I can explain." "Gina," I continued. "Friday afternoon, my house, my bed. You forgot to move your car from behind the garage where you thought nobody could see it." Gina burst into tears. "And Derek," I said, turning to my brother-in-law. "You've been running the whole operation, haven't you? Coordinating schedules, making sure everyone got their turn, probably taking a cut of whatever Sam's been charging." Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "The only thing I haven't figured out," I said, looking back at Sam, who had gone from triumphant to terrified in the span of 2 minutes, "is whether you were planning to ask for alimony before or after you moved in with Brad, permanently." The pavilion erupted. People were shouting, crying, demanding explanations. Brad was backing toward the parking lot. Mike was already running. Curtis was trying to apologize to his girlfriend, who'd been sitting 3 tables away during the whole show. But the best part was Sam's face, For the first time in months, she had absolutely nothing to say. "Happy birthday to me," I announced to the chaos. "Next year, let's skip the party."